It's a great pleasure to be here with you. I've got, I'm just going to put up my first slide. And what I'd like you to do is have a look at this and just try and interpret that slide and where is this happening? Who is this individual who's sitting there in that seat? And I'm going to put you out of your misery now and tell you that this is Sean Paul, and he is somebody who's doing a non-custodial sentence. He's doing his sentence in the community under a community payback order, and he's sitting in the judge's seat. One of the very important things about participatory video is that it allows people to go to places they would not otherwise go and experience things and see an overview, see the bigger picture. Okay. I promised to give a Scottish context, and this is a very, very boring slide. All right? It's very boring. All it does is it says that in Scotland, there was a thing called the Christie Report. It really calls for a revolution in the way that public services are delivered. And I'm involved in thinking about distribution for film, for participatory video, in order to allow people to exercise their rights to advocate. These are the 4 principles. And the first one says empower individuals and communities. And what does that mean? How do you do that? The report doesn't say. This one here says they're not doing it. Basically, the audit commission is the people who look at who has spent the money and how they've spent it. And in Scotland, they're saying you're not spending it the right way, basically, because this bit that this should involve placing the views of local communities at the heart of measuring success. It's not happening. Participatory video is a very, very powerful tool to be doing that kind of thing. This slide here is basically saying that the government and local authority and large organizations work out how they want to do this kind of thing with the community, rather than saying it needs to be grassroots from the community themselves. What do they want to do? What are their priorities? What are their needs? What are their wants? So I always think of, a bureaucrat wondering how far there should be between bus stops. And then they do some research about that. But the community might be thinking, where are the buses? So it goes like that. What are the priorities? This is for all the academics. This is my academic slide. I hope you enjoy it. Arnstein is somebody from 1969, and this is citizen participation in decision-making. All right? So, and it's from no power with therapy and manipulation. I think that we're probably in the middle bit here with local government and so on, if you think about how we're being treated. So there's lots of information comes from central government, from local government to us, lots of information, how to keep your water clean, how to stay safe, all of that kind of stuff. Consultation is probably where things are at the moment as well, which is that let's go out and find out. So what's happening in Scotland is that people are saying, well, we need to get people with lived experience to tell us what they think, and then we'll incorporate it somewhere in a report. That's really good. So that's consultation, but it's also that's application. What it means is that there's no transfer of power or very little transfer of power. Maybe people have got a voice, maybe they're heard, maybe not. Somebody else is making a decision where they find their priorities more important. And there's no priority more important than being a human being, having your voice heard, and sharing in the decision making. I'll come back to that slide in a moment. In Scotland, we have a thing called participatory budgeting, which is slightly less interesting than participatory video. What it means is that money is given to local communities and they choose what to do with it. In Scotland, there's £15.9 billion. I couldn't work out the euros because it's fluctuating so much. But by 2021, they want to spend 1%, and I've worked out that's £150 million. I think at the moment it's probably £2 to £3 million that is going through this route. And this is, going back to the other slide, I think it's a bit of tokenism. I think it's tokenistic. So we are very, very far away from that real sharing of power, because where the budget goes is where power goes, and how are people getting involved in that? That's the context that I'm working on in Scotland, and doing all kinds of work across the board with people from young people to every kind of group. I want to tell you very briefly about how this started. I used to be a reporter with local radio, and I was one of those important people who went out with my microphone. You can see my brilliant microphone technique here, isn't it brilliant? And what I would do is I'd go and ask people questions, and by asking the questions, I'd be setting the agenda for whatever it was. And one year I was doing some broadcasts about winter warmth, because elderly people in the community are entitled to extra money. And it was awareness-raising broadcasting going out on local radio. And I thought, right, let's make a crisis out of this. Let's find a bit of drama. So I thought, if your house is damp, you're obviously going to use more power and energy, therefore more money. So what I did was I went out to a peripheral estate, a poor area on the outskirts of Edinburgh, where I'm from, and found an elderly lady, and I said, tell me about your house. And it smelt, you know, that horrible smell of damp. There was paper peeling off the walls, and she was not in a healthy condition. And I'm going to do a little bit of colloquial Scottish for you. So, I mean, it'll be only me that understands it. I asked her, tell me about your house. And she said, aye, son, it's awfully damp, it's awfully damp. And what that means is it's damp, it's wet, the walls are damp. And I knew that's what I needed. I needed that little bit to go into my broadcast, and I'd have a great broadcast. I might get a Sonny Award or something like that. It would be great. But then when I went away, I realized that nothing was changing for that person. She didn't know why her house was damp, who else had a damp house, what her rights were, the effects on her health. Nobody seemed to care. So I set up media education exactly for that reason, to begin to address that. So it's about being a human being and having the right to be there. Lisa was talking about power. You are exerting the most power that you have by sitting in this room. You are powerful. Wherever you are is where you exercise your power. So how does that translate into current practice? We are very interested in exactly all the things that Lisa was saying about transferring that power or working very cooperatively with people. So we're very interested in an empowered position is one where you make an argument for what you want. You set the agenda. So we make films with individuals where they set the agenda. And I'm about to show you one. And it's a film with somebody called Danielle.
Hi, I'm Danielle, I'm 18, I'm from Scotland, and my main hobbies are listening to music, going on YouTube and making fan art. Music is really important to me, it's just my escape from reality, I guess. Today I want to talk about my favourite band called Road Trip. The reason they're my favourite band is because they've helped me and so many of my friends through difficult times in our life, such as family problems, bullying, insecurities, just day-to-day stuff that teenagers have. Road Trip and all the roadies interact through Twitter. I've met so many of my friends because of Road Trip. I want people to join the fandom because there is a lot of lovely people. They've made me realise that in a way it's okay not to be okay, but it's okay to be yourself and you shouldn't be ashamed of who you are. I'd love for if someone hadn't ever heard of Road Trip, they were to go look them up on Twitter. It's at Road Trip 3000. Their music's amazing, they're just amazing people. They really do deserve to be out there and be big.
I think you'll see a lot of that message. People are experts on their own lives and circumstances, and I think it's a very important message, and it's at the end of most of our films. What's interesting about this is that this is what Danielle wanted to talk about. And in terms of what she would do with that, she has a distribution for that film. She's taking a leadership role, if you like, within her fandom. And it's a starting place to move on to other things. The film reflects a news item that you might see on television, except it's her that's creating the topic, and she's got an audience, but it's the starting point for that. And I think it's moving from consumer to creator for somebody, but it's in a structured way. Okay? I also enjoy these pictures that I've put in here with this. I think pictures are very powerful and have a strong message. I'm going to show you another one of these immediate news. We call it immediate news or in film, because this is a worker in a local area. So we're not just thinking about service users, we're thinking about people who deliver the services and what they want to say. Because one of the issues with participatory video and any kind of media is to do with visibility. And how visible are you? How safe is it to be visible, and so on? I'm going to leave that to the side. It's perhaps something we'll handle in the workshop later. But what this will do is show that this is an individual working in a community, and we can understand who she is. And when Lisa was talking about trust, then perhaps this answers some of that.
Hello, my name's Jane Horn and I'm a project worker for Healthy and Happy Community Development Trust. Today I'd like to talk about equality and diversity and how we should embrace the changes that are happening in society with the different people coming into our communities. It's really important to me because we've now got a very different demographic, we've got a very different range of people moving into the area, and I feel that it's really important that we see beyond the labels that society has assigned people, and we see and embrace their real potential. And when I look at the children that I work with in Burnhill, which is in the top 5% of the SIND, I think there could be an economist, there could be a philosopher, there could be the child that unlocks the cure for cancer, and we will never know because these children don't have access to the same opportunities that other people have. And we need to look past somebody's postcode of where they were born. We need to look past somebody's attire, somebody's headscarf, and see the person behind the label that we've given them. I think to see past all this, we need to educate people, we need to get people together, we need to get people to embrace their differences, to see that difference is a good thing. We need to do it in a fun, non-threatening way, and to quote Cormac Russell, why have a meeting when we can have a party?
I agree with that completely. Why have a meeting, have a party? I think that we now know much more about who this person is, and rather than knowing what her job is, we know a lot more about her as a person. And I think this is the kind of thing that I'm particularly interested in the practice that we develop. I've got some of these lovely cartoons here, and can I just say this was done by one of my work colleagues, and she promised me that that isn't me. All right, that's a very important point. This just gives the structure. I think that if we're thinking about this dark character on the left, or sorry, on the right, is the large institution, the organization. How do we reach? How does the voice go in there? How does that happen? And so this is just a sequence. I think it can be very frustrating, particularly if you're confined to a computer engagement. However, and you can tell how old this slide is because it's the radio one. And it's really about that. It's about putting people on an more equal status, not an equal status. And this is the bit for me that is very interesting, is about where people sit down together and have a conversation, and where the people from the community can set agenda with the films that they make. And that's very important to me. I don't know how we're doing for time, but I've got, I will just stop when I'm told to stop, and then I'll carry on at another time. Shared sentences. This is a participatory video project for people serving community sentences, and we saw Sean Paul sitting in the judge's chair. It's a very creative process and fun. I think you saw that from the film that Lisa showed, and I was very moved, by the way, Lisa, wherever you are, because I feel that there's a robustness, there's an energy, particularly for young men or men, but there's also massive vulnerability, and I think that we need to be thinking about these when we're thinking about who is in prison, why they're in prison, and so on. I don't want to get into that too much, but this film, it was really good to see Lisa's film as well, because it allows those people to have their voice and to say what they're saying, rather than it being somebody like me. I'm going to show this film. It lasts about 11 minutes, but it gives you a very good idea about the project, about the transition and the transformation for a group from people who feel that they should not be heard or listened to people who are saying, or who are saying that I'm not welcome in society because I'm an offender. To people who are saying I'm taking an active role within my community. And that was the purpose of this project.
Day one was, you came in and I just thought, there's no danger that any of us are going to be able to produce anything. I was like, there's no danger. But we've actually quite gelled all quite good together, by the way, and we've all helped with each other's film. I think it's been really, really good, and it's a shame that it's come to an end so close. So we made a film about CPOs. They look at what a CPO is, a community payback order, which is kind of modern community service. Look at the kind of person who can be served with a CPO, and we also spoke to some of the people behind these things, such as the Sheriff Court in Glasgow, and also the head of CGA Glasgow. Hopefully people get a better idea of what a CPO is and what a CPO aims to achieve, because like I said, people, the general public, want to see criminals being punished. It's only natural and it's proper that they should be, but the most important thing is that we treat offenders in a way that's going to desist them from crime, so we can reduce reoffending rates. I think as a group, as part of this course, watching the films was really interesting, but what was pretty special was the access that we were given to these people that we wouldn't normally be able to just go along and speak to. Such as Professor McNeil or Tom Jackson, or get into the Sheriff Court and filming. You know, it's pretty incredible. So having this kind of access and being able to ask them straight up the questions that we had for them, it was excellent.
Our first day when we first arrived here, none of us knew what we were going to be doing, and we done a wee short film about the Gesh, what the Gesh is and what the Gesh offers to the community. This was our first time working as a team, trying to set up a camera. I think it took us half of the day to figure out how to sort the stuff out, and then we finally got to the interview. It was a couple of minutes long, just speaking to Maureen, the manager, explaining what the service offers, how it helps the community. It doesn't just help the people in here, it will also help the community out in their homes, depending what they ask for. They can go out and help certainly elderly people. The reason why we filmed a short movie, a film for the Gesh, is they've let us use the facility, this room, over the last 10 weeks to make our film and use it to interview people and that, so we thought it was only right that we done something back for the Gesh to help Maureen show what the service actually does for the users and the elderly in the community.
How you doing?
How are you?
It's like learning both languages, English and Glaswegian. This program what I'm doing, it's like about people who they come to this country and they're learning like two languages, you know what I mean, like English and Glaswegian. You get my drift, you know what I mean? I learned a lot of skills, like how to use the camera, how to do the interviews, but interviews I'm a wee bit like always nervous, you know, like, but I'm trying on my best with that. But I learned very good like how to put up like the lights and the flash and like the cameras and stuff like that, you know what I mean? I learned a lot, you know. From the first I was like, oh, I can't do it like that, you know, but when I came, met everybody, and the lads here, they're very friendly and they're so brilliant, you know what I mean? And I enjoyed it a lot, you know. Parkhead Library.
Parkhead Library. Parkhead Library.
Not posh enough.
Parkhead Library.
No, be a bit better. I'm sorry, I couldn't resist it because he does it to us.
The film's about me looking as if I'm locked up, but people shouldn't be judging about his colour. It's actually got the wrong side of it. It's actually that I'm not locked up, and I'm showing people exactly what I do. I was learning people down Templeton, and it's made me want to inspire a lot of people and help a lot of people. It's something I'd really like to do. You know, I feel I've got a lot to offer. I've enjoyed getting up on a Wednesday and coming here and with the guys, good people, but beside some good guys. I've really enjoyed it. When we get a bit of inspiration for it, for looking at it and seeing where I went wrong and how I went right and changed my life.
The bedroom tax. The bedroom tax, it was just, we were just sitting one day and the rest of these were all deciding what yous were going to do, and I had my idea already set, and then I looked in the paper and there was a thing that was on at the High Court, and I just went like, that's what I'm doing it on. And then I started getting finding local MPs and local councillors, but a few of the councillors at first refused to do it and all that, so I just changed my idea and went straight for MPs and MSPs. So we got them involved and they done it, not a problem. Then we got local members of the community for View Park, when they hold a public meeting, etc. about it, and then we went to a couple of protests and that. It's changed the way I look at things and look at my life and look at myself on a daily basis, instead of just sitting in the house doing this, doing that, or getting chased with the police. I now want structure and things to do on a daily basis, keep myself active, keep myself going, instead of just sitting about not doing anything. This got me up most days to come and do filming, meeting new people, helping me with my anxiety and stuff like that, and giving me confidence to do more things, and then going and interviewing all the other people. It was a really experience for me.
Well, it was great. It was very interesting to engage with the project, and the questions were pretty searching, difficult ones to answer, particularly to answer in a sort of succinct way, but really stimulating conversation to have.
No, I was very impressed, the whole team, and somebody doing the sound and the camera and the interviewing and the directing. I've met some of the BBC and STV people who are not nearly as professional as that.
Well, no, Sean Paul is obviously, he's been the one that's asking the questions in a sort of Michael Parkinson sort of way. But he's done his preparation. The questions are sensible, and the way he's asked them, the tone has been right, and the easy, the questions that make sense and are relevant. So he's done a good job. Willie's doing something with the camera. I think it's and he's told me a wee bit about himself and his past and all that. And I mean, he looks the part, but for all intents and purposes, he looks as if he's been at that job for years. So that's impressive. And this gentleman here with the what do you call that? The sort of sound thing. Microphone. Yeah. You're a natural. You've got a big career ahead of you.
The four of us got the chance to make a group of films about different subjects, one of them being the CPOs, the community payback orders, and as well as that we each got to make an individual film with a brief that it should be about something in the community.
Just been to see the film, and I think it's absolutely first class. In fact, it's brilliant, really good. I think the project's good because it's not doing mundane stuff, it's giving them the opportunity to be involved in stuff that they might not ever have had the chance to be involved in before.
The good thing is that they all done very well, but at the end of the day, they're all going to split up again, but it's a shame about that because they were doing so well all together as a team. So now when the teamwork's over, what happens next?
I think it's amazing. I don't think people realise, they see the film and maybe what they have to see is all the behind the scenes learning that went on. Learning to work as a team, learning to listen to other people, learning to share your opinion, standing up for what you think is right, but doing it in such a way that people hear, not shouting, not screaming, not stamping your feet, saying it in a form that people understand. I think the films were amazing.
Where people have got to do unpaid work, let's look at giving them unpaid work that is going to be beneficial to them, productive and beneficial to society in general.
I've told people that I've been doing this course as part of my CPO, and they thought it's ridiculous. You know, they thought, "Oh, you've got an easy ride." That's what happens when when you're supposed to be punished, and this is your punishment. But I can understand the public's need for someone who commits a crime to be punished, because ultimately he should be punished. But I think something I already felt beforehand, but I've learned more about it doing this through watching the films and through some of the interviews that we've done, is that ultimately the sentence that is given to a criminal, the view has to be to get them to desist from crime and to stop them from reoffending, and I think this is a positive way of getting about that.
Thank you very much. What's interesting there is the group took on an identity which was brushed up production. So we're thinking about how people are retuning the sense that they have of themselves, and also how they are being seen by others. So Sheriff Woods there, who did that interview in the courtroom, when we were going into the courthouse, I stopped everybody, and everybody's holding all the kits, and I said, "Hang on a minute, are you okay to go in here?" And they said, "Oh yes, Iain, we're fine because we know we're coming out the same door." And I think that that's there's a completely different status. And I think that we need to be thinking about those kinds of things as part of that structure, that these people had excellent access and were able to form an overview. It's not good enough to have people with lived experience sharing their story. We need to be moving beyond that. There's somebody called Margaret Ledwith who is very clear on this, that we need to be moving towards, and so that that we're looking at societal change, we're looking at structural change. And I agree with that. It's not good enough and not enough for people just to share their story. We need to have people moving to the point where they're taking action and also taking control. I enjoyed that rant. Everything is political. And this is the kind of things that we're looking at. We want people to have fun, a sense of joy about participation and decision making. Very important, and it needs to be working on lots of different levels. There's a personal development level and there's a societal development level, and they're both equally important, and we need to be thinking about that when we're thinking about participatory video. What is the distribution? How are those people involved in that distribution? How are they using that as a platform for constructive or any kind of conversation where they can have that conversation on their terms? I'm going to finish with an example, because I think that it's not just the people with lived experience. We all have lived experience. It's very important that everybody within the structures also recognizes that they have power, they have agency, and they have responsibility. A lot of people wait for permission, and we need to be thinking about making permission happen. So this is a project where we worked with people with lived experience. They made a set of films for this conference, and the conference is about, and I can never remember, it's Scottish health, alcohol, something problems. But it's on the screen, and I don't have my glasses on, so I can't see it. But what it is that we were very aware that it would be academics and people from the World Health Organization, from all the agencies that have something to do with alcohol and reducing alcohol harm. And it was very important to be thinking about how that conference could be used as a start, as a platform for people to begin to take action. It's all very well, and you're being like sponges here, and you're absorbing a lot of material. I don't know what you will do with it. I don't know how you will move to action, and that's one of the things that I would be very interested to find out. So that's the agenda, is that it's moving from awareness to action. And if anybody comes to the workshop that I'm doing later on today, then that's what we're doing, moving from awareness to action through participatory video. So we're doing two things at the conference. One is we're bringing lived experience into the room, where people with lived experience can set their own agenda. The other thing we're doing is we're saying to the delegates, you are an expert. Let's capture some of that into short pieces to create a resource. And so that if you think that you may have a view, but you may have politics within your organization, and you think, well, actually, I really need to get this on the agenda. You can then use some of the resources from the conference of experts or other delegates or the lived experience and say, let's have a chat about this. So the idea of using film clips in an active way, like in a presentation or in a meeting or in a one-to-one or in any kind of environment, is very important. What I'm going to do is I don't know, are you okay for me to continue? I've got about another 7 or 8 minutes. I'm just looking around. Are you all right for that? Oh, I don't know if that was all right or not. Oh no, I'm panicking. I'm melting down. I was given permission there. And what's interesting about this is, as a collective, you don't know whether it's okay to give me permission as a set of individuals, and you're not yet a collective. Were you to be a collective, you would know what the answer was. Just a small example of how I think that we can be very disempowered by being individuals, and we don't know each other. It's very important that we do. Thank you for that. That was great. What I want to do is I want to show this film, and this is lived experience film, because there were a number of themes at the conference. There was youth, health, justice, and a number of others. And we're just going to look at justice. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through a set of the resources from this conference. There are about 60 of them. They're on the website for everybody who's involved in harm reduction with alcohol to use back in their home contexts.
My routine. Get up, get coffee, stick the music on, do my readings. It used to be get up, open a can and work out where I would get money to get the next one. After my readings I pray to my mum. I got 10 months sober with her before she passed. It amazes me she never gave up hope. In the madness I used people to get what I needed. Somewhere to stay, some money and another drink. My routine was going from B&B to the sofa, to the streets, to the jail. I did this cycle 35 times. When I get in from work, I take the dog out and I look in on the people that I'm mentoring. Even if it's just giving them a ring, it helps me just as much as it helps them. I was on my own most of the time in prison. I kept myself to myself. I would eat, sleep and go to the gym. Build myself up before I went back into the madness, back into that cycle. I would have died if it wasn't for prison. The last time I got arrested, I did it so I'd have somewhere to sleep. I got put in a drug treatment and test in order, and I met somebody in recovery. I knew he'd been through what I'd been through. I could see it in his eyes and I didn't like it. It made me take a hard look at myself, and I knew I had to change. Recovery helped build my new routine. The last thing I do at night is I sit back and watch Netflix. As long as I keep recovery at the top of my list, I know I will not have to spend another night in jail.
So that would be the kind of film that would open up the plenary. And then delegates, once they'd been immersed in the themes for that topic, in this case justice, would be able to say, go and find a camera. And I said, maybe you want to do that today. Find a camera and just speak for a minute, 30 seconds, to share what you want to share. And that's what happened.
And I think for me, I think of criminal justice when I think of justice, but actually it's about justice for everybody in terms of how we deliver interventions and what interventions are available. So when we're looking at inequalities, we're looking at, in particular, people in the criminal justice system who struggle with a lot of inequalities. So they may be drinking and using drugs, they may have nowhere to live when they go out, they may have broken relationships. So there's a lot of things going on there for these people, and I think it's not enough for us to say one intervention fits all. So in terms of justice for all, I think we need to look at the population groups we're working with and just make sure that we're taking things into account that are relevant to that group.
So you can see here the argument that's being made through the selection of these clips is for a decriminalized approach to alcohol and drugs misuse. The final film I want to show is, again, it's somebody who attended as a delegate.
Justice and alcohol. I was locked up when I was 10 years old in the 70s. A quick recap was my mother died when I was 4. I ran away from the house. I got put into the care system. The people that did duty of care abused their duty of care, and that threw up all these issues. And I anaesthetic that with alcohol, suppressing all these feelings of guilt, shame and remorse. And most of the shame and guilt wasn't my shame and guilt. It was my parents or the people who were supposed to be looking after me. People's eyes and their minds are getting opened up about seeing the human being, seeing behind, because a lot of it's childhood experiences that people, and then when you put alcohol down, you still need to deal with all these issues, because the people, I came into recovery at 48 years of age. I looked 48, but inside I was like an 11-year-old vulnerable boy, and that's when I started taking alcohol into my system.
So you can see the usefulness of this kind of approach in terms of thinking about how are we creating changes within the institutions. That's told me 45 minutes are up. But you can see how often people are under-resourced working on their own. So in the way that we can be using participatory video techniques to allow you to have other people that you agree with in the room with you. And so if you imagine, you could have experts, you can have colleagues, you can have people with lived experience speaking directly about the issue. That's where the power of this lies. And in terms of thinking, how are we getting change to happen? What motivates people to make change? Do we believe that everybody out there is just indifferent? I think people in general want to do the best they can. I trust that. So in this way, we're looking at creating an environment for the delegates to support each other by creating new resources. And if we were to look at a paradigm shift in the way that conferences are conducted, I now feel the ground shaking under my feet. What would it be like? Why do we accept the normal parameters of what these things are? Why don't we question? Why don't we change? And there needs to be permission. And I got permission to carry on. So it's that kind of thing. It's where does the permission come from for these things? Willie changed. I mean, this is this guy here, William, changed. And to put the camera is an empowering thing, as Lisa was saying. We can be dispelling what the traditional image is. And it was very kind of Sheriff Wood to do this. So he takes me under trust. I made his face slightly redder. So it's just that kind of look of anger. But that is how we think of the criminal justice system. And actually, it needs to be community justice. And there's Sean Paul sitting in the seat. But there's lots of different things that can be happening in terms of the way that people are interacting with one another, the sense of authority that they may have, where they may have been more disempowered before. And looking at where you can get to with this in terms of things like access. This is one of the committee rooms in the Scottish Parliament, and that's a group of young people that we're working with, making presentations. And everyone has the right to be heard, even if it might be unpleasant to hear. And it's really important because we need to be in a position where we're having realistic conversation, discussion, debate, with the idea that we're looking for a positive resolution, somehow a negotiated resolution. And that's very important. And to be able to understand who other people are, where they're coming from, what motivates them is very important. And I think that participatory video can play a very strong role. And you can see how much I love this slogan. And they are. People are experts. And let's use that expertise And we really need to be thinking, for change to happen, we need the people in the institutions, in those monoliths, to be part of that change. We need to win them with our approaches. And I suppose the other thing is that within large institutions there's a lot of oppression. And we need to support people through that within those large organizations. That's me. Thank you very, very much indeed for your attention.